Hey everyone, welcome to this week's conversation with Dr. Steve and Nedd about the body and how to fix, protect, or maintain it using outside-the-box alternative solutions. If you're a big fan of the pharmaceutical or surgical approach, you are so in the wrong place, because on this podcast, we're not going to be pushing the conventional medicine methods or way of thinking about health. If you're looking for another way to live longer and healthier, join me, Ron Nedd, and my brother Dr. Stephen Nedd for this week's body chat about computer slouch and text neck. Me? I'm a retired Twin Cities chiropractor currently helping people buy and sell homes in the Tampa Bay and Los Angeles areas. My brother has a thriving chiropractic practice in the Clearwater area of Tampa Bay, Florida. In this podcast, we're going to chat about all sorts of topics related to health, nutrition, exercise, just about everything having to do with the body. You're invited to listen in to our body chat, but don't forget that neither of us is giving you health advice, so don't rush off to do something without either checking with your doctor first or seeing Dr. Stephen Nedd as a patient at his office. Hey, Steve.
Hey, brother.
All right, so this week we're going to go into a topic that affects almost everybody these days because almost everybody uses computers, tablets, or smartphones, and that has to do with computer slouch and text neck. These are two newer conditions a lot of people either suffer from or are at risk for getting, and most people haven't really heard of them. Of course, part of that is because I made those two terms up for this podcast, and there's other terms that are actually used for those conditions, but I like mine better. What is computer slouch and what is text neck?
All right. Well, computer slouch is also known as computer hunch.
Okay.
And it basically describes people hunched over computers, smartphones, or tablets for hours on end, potentially causing various painful conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And text neck is also called tech neck, and it's very similar in which people hold their head flexed and forward while looking down at mobile devices or even a laptop or desktop computers, causing neck strain.
Okay. I still like my names better. Did you have anything more to say about that?
No, I kind of like that too. We'll go along with it, and I might be referring to both names as we go through this.
That sounds fine. Now, why have these become such a problem?
Well, because of the harm that they do to the body. Computer slouch can lead to a disfiguring condition called postural kyphosis. I'm sure that's something you remember from chiropractic college.
Mm-hmm, but you might want to explain what it is to the people listening.
Good idea. It's an exaggerated upper back curve that creates a rounded appearance, also known as the dreaded humpback or hunchback, made famous by Quasimodo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
That's right.
Marty Feldman, who played Igor in Young Frankenstein.
That's correct, although his was just on one side.
That's true. And of course, we can't leave out Riff Raff in the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So postural kyphosis ranges from mild to severe and can result in severe deformity, nerve problems, and chronic pain. And even a minor case can result in like burning or aching in your upper back and neck, headaches, pinched nerves, reduced blood flow to the upper body and your head, which probably is responsible for the headaches. And the pain tends to get worse with prolonged work over your devices. The other thing is it can potentially cause cardiac and respiratory issues because there's less area in your chest for your heart and lungs to expand when you're hunched over like that.
Interesting point. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, and then the other thing is long-term slouching can also put strain on other parts of your body, including your lower back, hips, and knees, resulting in even more painful conditions.
Okay. So for computer slouch, which muscles are involved and what happens to them that causes this?
Well, first of all, your front chest muscles, also known as your pecs, as well as the front of your shoulders, your delts, they get tight and they shorten and they pull your shoulders inward and your spine forward.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens is the opposing muscles, your upper back and mid-back muscles, which include your rhomboids, which are in between your shoulder blades, and your rotator cuff muscles, in particular, two of them, become stretched, lengthened, and over time they get weakened.
Okay, good. So the muscles in front are shorter and get stronger, and the ones in back get stretched out and are weaker.
Yeah, because you're using those muscles consistently in front of you, typing and doing various things, and you're bending forward. The other thing that's interesting is most people also sit forward on their seat, and it creates what's called a forward pelvic tilt. And that's due to the constant contraction of your hip flexors, your psoas muscles.
Mm-hmm.
And then they become tight and overactive. But what's also interesting is they can become weak due to overuse. They're just like you use something too much, it just blows out like an old tire. It's just fatigued. And so the solution for that is, and I find this in a lot of my patients when I check their hip flexors, is we give them stretches and strengthening exercises. At the same time, your hip extensors, the opposing muscles, your glutes, become inhibited. And then so the solution for that is to strengthen those. I mean, people sit on their butt all day, but they don't use their butt muscles, so they lose their butt.
Okay. So that you want to strengthen the back and you want to stretch the front.
Correct.
Okay. So now what are some of the ways that people can avoid computer slouch?
Well, I would say that starts by becoming aware of your posture and what good posture actually is, especially when you're sitting at a computer. So people really need to take ergonomics seriously. And for those of you who don't know what ergonomics is, it's the applied science of equipment and furniture design and arrangement in the workplace to maximize production, reduce fatigue, discomfort, and potential injuries. And my viewpoint is not only should it be applied at the workplace, but anywhere you're using a computer, including your home and at travel.
Okay.
So some basic recommendations would be then your chair. Starting with your chair, you should have a good lumbar support for your lower back and a neck support. And you should sit against the back of the chair, not forward. So I found my chair at Staples. I got a really great chair there. And what I did is I sat on a bunch of them. I went to Staples, Office Depot, and so forth until I found one that fit me. And this one's nice because it's adjustable. You should always also make sure that your feet are flat on the floor with your knees at about 90 degrees. That's also very important.
Okay.
Now, as far as the desk, preferably you should get one that's adjustable so you can either sit or stand at it. And my personal favorite is the motorized desk from IKEA, which has a 10-year warranty on the motor. My motor went after about a year, and I just removed it, called them. They said, bring the receipt in, and no questions asked. I brought it back. They gave me a new one. Another one that's on the market that's hot is the Veridesk, and that one is adjustable. It sits on top of the desk, and it's portable. About $100 less, but that one's workable too. And the other thing is that as far as the keyboard, it should be at 90 degrees from your arms when you're typing. So in other words, your forearm should be parallel to the floor when you're typing.
Okay.
Now, another thing that I found is helpful is what's called a stress wedge. And what that is, it's a piece of foam that you sit on that's angled downward. And what it does is it increases the angle of your hips and knees, which forces you to actually sit up straight. So it actually takes care of that anterior pelvic tilt that I was talking about.
Yeah, some of the chairs that have adjustments, you can adjust the seat so it tilts forward. I don't know if it's this chair that I have or a previous one that I had. I think it was the black chair that I had when I was back there, that I would have the seat itself actually tilted forward probably somewhere between 15 and 30 degrees, which would always force me to sit back.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so if somebody doesn't have one of those, they can get this stress wedge, which is foam that's angled.
Yeah, and they run around $15 to $20.
Do you know where they can get those at?
We sell them at the office, and you can always Google and find one online. I think even Amazon carries it.
Okay.
Now, another thing that I like to recommend is to stand up if you're sitting at a desk every 20 to 30 minutes so that you're not stuck in the same position for hours on end. So we talked about this in one of the previous podcasts, that sitting is the new smoking.
Mm-hmm.
And the great reference for that is Sitting Kills Movement Heals by Joan Vernikos, PhD, the former NASA director.
Right.
And as I was researching this, I just found a new study that was published in Circulation magazine. It's based on more than 1,700 participants from the large ongoing Dallas Heart Study. And this found that people who sit for 10 or more hours a day tend to have above average levels of troponins in the blood. Troponins, Troponins. And those are proteins that are produced by your heart muscle cells when they're hurt or dying. And so chronically high levels of troponins means heart damage is ongoing and can eventually lead to heart failure. And there's also evidence that troponin levels are lowered by exercise, so you should ideally combine less sitting and more exercise to potentially reduce your risk of heart failure.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah, hot stuff.
All right. So now if somebody notices they have computer slouch, what can they do about it?
Well, first of all, just follow the recommendations that I just went over.
Mm-hmm.
To go into more detail, what we like to do at our office is a professional posture analysis to see how serious it actually is. So if you're working with a physical therapist or another chiropractor or a doctor, you should have them actually take a look at you. In fact, you might even want to have an x-ray done, especially if you have osteoporosis. It could lead to a compression fracture if you're bent over too far.
Okay.
And if you're having pain in the spine itself, that's an indicator there may be a compression fracture.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you have a posture analysis done and you find out that you do have anterior pelvic tilt or forward pelvic tilt, obviously you want to stretch your psoas, your hip flexors. And the way you can do that is you get down on the floor, you lunge forward with one leg in front of the other while the other knee is on the ground.
Okay.
And if it's a hard floor, obviously use a pillow or a towel to protect your kneecap. And there's a really good reference that I like. There's a website you can go to. It's unlockyourhipflexors.com. And this website is great because it gives you a reference for the best stretches for your hip. There's 10 exercises, and it's a $10 download. You can also download to your phone, too.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And then what about the upper back, the hump aspect of computer slouch, which doesn't have to get to the point of a hump? Computer slouch can be just this kind of forward slouch. So what about that? What can be done if somebody has that going on?
Well, let's get into that in a little bit, because I want to explain another exercise here that also will be helpful for this, what we were just talking about.
Okay.
Another thing that we like to recommend is what's called pelvic tilts. And this strengthens your inner core muscles inside the pelvic floor. It's part of the strong posture program that we're trained in at the office. And Pilates and yoga and so forth tend to work on your core, but most exercises focus on the outer core and like your abdominal muscles. This actually works your inner core. And this will help stabilize your pelvis so it doesn't tend to tilt quite so much.
Okay.
Another thing is that when you look at somebody from the front, as far as their posture, their hands should be at their sides with their thumbs pointing forward, and the palms should be facing inward. So when your chest muscles tighten up from computer hunch, your hands end up in front of your body and your palms face backwards. So you should really only see a person's thumb and index finger knuckle when you look at them from the front. And the solution to this would be to stretch the tight chest and front shoulder muscles and strengthen the stretched and weak upper back and mid-back muscles.
Okay.
And the way we go about doing that is using the Posture Medic.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a strategically constructed device composed of resistance bands that you can wear and exercise with. And it includes a program in which you do 3 stretches for your tight chest and shoulder muscles, 3 strengthening exercises for your upper and mid back, including handling the rotator cuff. And then you stabilize by actually wearing it like a backpack.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And not only is it good for once you already have computer slouch, but I'd recommend it just to prevent it in the first place.
All right, good. So this goes with a program of stretching the muscles that are tight in the front, strengthening the muscles that are weak and stretched out in the back, and that it also is kind of a support type of thing.
Correct.
Okay.
And then a couple additional things you can do is those big round stability balls that you see in the gym. One thing you can do to reverse that forward C curve that you have from hunching is to lay backward on the ball and try to touch the floor behind you with your fingers, creating a backward C. And what essentially this does is it stretches the tight muscles in the front of the body that are pulling you forward.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Great idea.
And then the other one would be a doorway chest stretch, in which when you face an open doorway, you bend your elbows to 90 degrees. You raise your arms up to shoulder height. Place your forearms against the door jamb and lean forward until you feel the stretch in your chest, and hold it for about 20 to 30 seconds. And repeat this a few times. That's really, really simple and effective, and you don't need any special equipment for that.
Yes, but it's best not to do in an emergency exit when there's a fire and you're facing the wrong way.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, good. Well, those are all great solutions.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's something where people, if they're having concerns over it, or they want to have it checked out, or they want to get a proper program for it, they can always come to see you.
That's right.
Now let's move on to the next one. What are the problems that come from text neck?
Okay, well, first of all, let's get into what text neck is, or tech neck. It's also real destructive to your posture because it causes your head to jut forward as well as bend forward on the neck and shoulders. Now, like we talked about before, when you look at somebody from the front, if you actually look at someone from the side who is either sitting or standing, the center of their ear hole should line up perfectly with the center of their shoulder. And it should never be more than a half an inch in front of their shoulder, their ear hole.
Okay.
So every inch your head is in front of your shoulder, it puts more stress and strain on your neck and shoulders, as well as the discs, which happen to be in the front of your spine. So if your head, let's say, weighs 10 pounds, every inch you move forward adds another 10 pounds of strain. So if your head is 1 inch forward, it equals 20 pounds of strain. If it's 2 inches forward, it equals 30 pounds of strain.
Right.
And so we're talking now about it jutted forward. Now, if it's bent forward, there was actually a 2015 study published by the New York spine surgeon Kenneth Hansraj, and he found that just looking down at a cell phone or a mobile gadget puts as much as 60 pounds of extra pressure on your neck.
Wow.
Yeah, so basically, if you go from 0 to 15 degrees, the weight of your head increases from, and he used the average of 10 to 12 pounds of the average head.
Mm-hmm.
So if your head is perfectly straight up vertical at 0 degrees at 10 to 12 pounds, when you bend it 15 degrees, it makes it now 27 pounds of pressure on your neck.
Wow.
And when you go to 30 degrees, it increases to 40 pounds. At 45 degrees, 49 pounds. And at 60 degrees, it becomes 60 pounds. So if you have your head bent forward looking down at a cell phone for hours on end, you're really asking for it. And as you know, some heads are bigger than others. So obviously it would be more weight for bigger heads, like that Sputnik kid. And So I Married an Axe Murderer, one of your all-time favorite funny movies.
Okay. That's correct.
Yeah. And like computer slouch, tech neck can also produce a hump called Dowager's hump,
Mm-hmm.
which is caused by forward head posture, resulting in a prominence of this thick, connective, fatty tissue at the base of your neck. It's rather unsightly.
Mm-hmm.
And what this is, it's just the body's attempt to support your heavy head, which is way too far forward.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Very good to know.
Now, the real issue, again, is this combined forward head posture, like when you jut your head forward looking at a computer monitor, as well as forward head tilt, for example, looking down at a mobile device, which we just went over.
Mm-hmm.
And so before we get into the exact specific problems that it leads to, let's try this. All right. So people that are listening now, you can actually try this at home, and then you can pause at any time and then start again. But what I'd like you to do is either grab a bowling ball or a 15-pound weight, put it in front of you with outstretched arms for 30 seconds.
All right. So maybe like a huge bag of flour, or part of a cow that's in the freezer, or something heavy like that.
Yeah, something practical like that.
Okay.
And then after that, hold it close to your body.
Okay. So also for 30 seconds?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, which one is easier?
Well, since I didn't do it, I'd be guessing that it'd be easier holding it close to your body than away from your body, because the one away from your body, you're having to be pulling back to keep from making you fall forward.
Yeah. And it requires a lot more strain to do that. So, the bowling ball is like a human head, obviously in terms of weight only. But if the head is way out in front of the body, let's say several inches, your neck muscles have to work very hard to hold it there. Whereas if it's back where it should be and then balanced in center on top of your neck and shoulders, then your neck muscles hardly have to work at all.
Right.
So, if your head's 3 inches forward again, it becomes 60 pounds of weight force as opposed to it being centered at the actual weight of 15 pounds. So having your head too far forward leads to repetitive muscle strain and overuse.
Okay, good. All right. So that explains a lot more about text neck. And so did we discuss what problems come from that?
Well, yeah, specifically, it can lead to an achy or a sore neck, and that's usually what you feel in the beginning. But as it gets worse, it can progress to soreness and stiffness that extends down into your shoulder blades and arms, and it can even lead to tension headaches. And that's interesting because tension headaches are the most common type of headache, and it often involves the muscles that attach to the head that include your upper trapezius muscles, which start at your shoulders.
Very good.
Yeah.
Now, what are some of the ways to avoid text neck?
Well, the first thing is to look at where your computer monitor is. And there's two important points on this. First of all, the height. Now, most people don't know where you should put your monitor as far as height-wise. And in researching this, I found, and I learned this myself, is that it should be adjusted so that the top of the screen is at or slightly below eye level.
Wow.
Yeah. So what this means is that your eyes should look slightly downward when you're viewing the middle of the screen.
Okay.
And the other thing is the distance. So the distance should never be closer than 20 inches from your eyes. And a good rule of thumb is it should be an arm's length distance away.
Okay.
And so let's say it is that far away and you're having to squint. Well, then you should definitely get readers or corrective eyewear because this could cause you to jut your head forward in order to actually read the screen.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, if we move down to the computer desk chair, in this case, again, a full-length chair would be smart with a neck support. Because when you sit back on the chair, not only do you want your lower back supported and contacting the chair, but also your neck should rest against the support. And what this will do is it'll keep your head balanced on top of your shoulders instead of being jutted forward like we just covered. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, here's some neat things I found out. If you're using a mobile phone, you should hold it higher with your elbows closer to the side of your body. And what this does, it reduces the downward angle of your head. So you just want to hold it up so that your eyes are level and your head's not bending or jutting forward. And likewise, when you're using a tablet, you hold it the same as a mobile phone, or you can rest it on what's called a lap pad, which you can get at places like Amazon or Office Depot. And what that does is it raises the viewing angle and allows for your elbows to rest on an armrest, which then allows your neck and arm muscles to work less.
Okay.
You can relax. Yeah. Now, if you're sitting on a chair with a laptop on your lap, the most important thing is to angle the screen upward for proper viewing angles so that your head stays level.
Okay.
It's real simple and logical. And of course, the ideal situation would be to have a sitting and standing desk combination like we went over before.
Right. But that's not always possible. If you're at the airport and you need to do some work, you don't have that luxury.
Yeah. And believe it or not, standing is actually better than sitting.
Okay.
So just get up and stand for a while.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Now, if somebody's noticing neck problems that might be coming from text neck, what can they do about it?
Okay, well, again, let's follow the recommendations I just went over. But again, the digital posture analysis that we do helps you see for yourself with pictures the exact distance of your forward head posture. And when I show that to a patient, man, it just motivates them to actually do something about it. Because somebody can say, oh, your head is like 2 inches forward. And they're like, okay. But when they actually see what they look like, oh my gosh, people are like, I can't believe I look like that. And it really gets them to do something. And then immediately what I give them is what are called neck retractions, which is a really awesome exercise. And what you do is you stand a foot away from the wall, facing away from it. So your heels are a foot away from the wall, facing away from it. You lean back and contact the wall with your butt, your shoulders, and if possible, your head.
Right.
And then you push down on your toes to keep your body braced against the wall. And then put your index finger on your chin. And what that does is it helps you orient yourself in space, and it keeps you from bending your head forward when you do this exercise.
Okay.
So then the next thing you do then is you inhale and you glide your head straight forward slowly as far as you can. Okay. Again, don't bend. And then slowly glide your head straight back while you exhale.
Okay.
And that would constitute 1 repetition. So you do 5 repetitions. You rest for 10 seconds. and then do another 5 repetitions, and you do this twice a day.
Okay.
And basically what this does is it wakes up and strengthens tiny unused muscles in between each neck vertebra that are there to support your neck. Yeah. And I call it the bird exercise because you see birds walk like this with their heads moving forward before their bodies move.
Right.
Like pigeons and then egrets on the beach. And of course we have you do this at home and not in public, or you'll likely be teased and people might think you're doing some 1980s breakdancing maneuver. People would move their head around.
Exactly. Okay, good. All right. So those are some of the things that people can do. And what about like the rolling up the towel under the neck or using cervical pillow? Would that be of any use?
Yes, that's just a smart thing to do as therapeutic at night, or if you're reading before you go to bed. You don't want to lie on a flat pillow because it can also cause your head to come forward.
Okay, good. Now, is there anything else you'd like to say on this subject before we end?
Well, yeah, now that we're in the computer age, really this information applies to everyone. So please share this with others so that they don't end up looking like Igor or Riffraff.
All right. Thanks for all the good information tonight, Steve. And I'm sure this is going to be very useful to a lot of people.
Yes, it will.
All right. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Body Chat Podcast. We both really appreciate your time and your attention. We want to provide you with interesting and informative episodes each week, and if you have a topic you'd like us to cover or any questions you'd like us to answer, send an email to us at info@bodychatpodcast.com. That's info@bodychatpodcast.com. Next week, we're going to chat about a topic I like to refer to as cholesterol. Follow the white rabbit. To make sure you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes, subscribe to the Body Chat Podcast now on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or Spotify. See you next week.